There comes a moment in every person's life when the ground beneath them starts to move, long before anything changes in the physical world. It feels like a quiet stirring, a subtle pull, a knowing that something greater is rising within you. You may not see it yet, but you can feel it. Your life is about to lift off. The shift you have been sensing, the change you have been preparing yourself for, is already on its way. Your transformation does not begin when circumstances change. It begins the moment you change. The moment you adopt a new inner state, the external world begins its work of rearranging itself to match it. Every breakthrough, every blessing, every opportunity that will appear in your path starts first as a change in your inner feeling, your inner assumption, your quiet expectation. Life has never responded to what you wish for. It responds to what you know to be true about yourself. When you say to yourself, I am rising, I am being lifted, my life is shifting, and you feel it with conviction, you are already stepping into a new reality. You become like a rocket waiting for ignition. The pressure, the energy, the alignment is building internally long before the launch. Do not look at your current circumstances as evidence of delay. Life always lags behind imagination. What you see right now is just the last echo of an old belief system, an old state, an old version of you. It has nothing to do with where you're going next. Your new world has already formed. It simply hasn't reached visibility yet. So release the story of waiting. Detach from the identity that struggles and hopes. Step fully into the version of yourself who has already made it, already received it, already become it. Walk as that person, speak as that person, think as that person. When you do, the universe has no choice. It must reflect you. It must make visible what you have accepted internally. Your inner conversations are the architects of your destiny. The moment you shift the way you speak to yourself, your entire life begins to reorganize. Speak as the one who has already lifted off. Tell yourself that the doors are opening, the timing is aligning, and the next chapter is preparing to reveal itself. Every time you affirm your new state, you accelerate the manifestation of it. The shift you need is not coming from outside of you, it is rising from within, and because you have already made the internal movement, the external must follow. Life is about to move in your favor in ways that seem sudden, unexpected, and miraculous. But nothing is sudden to the one who knows the power of their own inner world. You are entering a season where elevation becomes natural, where things fall into place with a grace you have never experienced before, where opportunities seem to appear out of thin air, where people show up at the exact moment you need them. This is not luck. This is alignment. Your life is about to lift off not because something outside of you decided it, but because you decided it. You assumed the feeling. You claimed the state. You stepped into the new identity. And now creation must obey. So stand firm in this truth. The shift you need is already unfolding, and every step you take from this moment forward is part of your ascension. Expect acceleration, expect clarity, expect breakthrough. Your rise is not coming, it has already begun. The invisible shift has already begun long before you can point to anything in the physical world and say, there, that's the proof. Transformation never starts with what you can see, touch, or measure. It begins quietly, subtly, and powerfully within you. Long before the world catches up, a movement takes place in the deeper chambers of your consciousness. Something in you wakes up. Something in you rearranges. Something in you begins to rise. This is why people often sense change before they understand it. They feel a pull toward something new, even though nothing in their outer circumstances has changed yet. They feel a growing restlessness with their old reality, not because it is wrong, but because it is too small for who they are becoming. The invisible shift is the inner preparation for the next chapter, the clearing, the aligning, the unfolding. And though no one else may notice yet, you can feel it. You may find yourself thinking differently, responding differently, imagining differently. You may feel a new level of clarity about what you want or what you refuse to tolerate. You may feel a sudden calm about things that used to trigger you, or a sudden uneasiness about things that once felt comfortable. This is not confusion, it is alignment. It is the inner world reshaping itself according to a new state you have embraced. When something shifts within you, everything outside you must eventually follow. The outer world is slow because it must reorganize itself around your new identity, your new expectations, your new assumptions. But the inner world is instant. The moment you feel different, you are different. The moment you adopt a new state, the old one begins to dissolve. The moment you shift your inner story, the old story loses its power. It may take time for evidence to appear, but the transformation begins in an instant. The instant you decide. And here is the profound truth. The world is not reacting to who you were, it is reacting to who you are now becoming. Every time you assume a new feeling of certainty, every time you choose faith instead of fear, every time you imagine yourself as the version of you who has already risen, you are sending a signal into the universe, a signal that the old chapter is closed and a new one is opening. Do not mistake the silence of the outer world as inactivity. The silence is the rearranging. The silence is the recalibration. The silence is the preparation for a visible change that will appear so naturally that you might overlook how miraculous it truly is. The shift is already in motion. You just haven't seen the final form yet. Just as the seed transforms underground long before it breaks through the soil, your new reality is forming in the unseen long before it becomes visible. You may not see the roots, but they are growing. You may not see the movement, but it is happening. You may not see the change yet, but you are living in the early stages of it. Trust what you feel inside, because it is the first proof of what is coming outside. Trust the pull, the intuition, the sudden sense of expansion. These are not random feelings. They are signals that your life is aligning with a higher version of itself. The invisible shift has already begun, and soon the visible world will have no choice but to reveal what has already changed within you. Your assumption is the launchpad, the very foundation from which your entire life begins to rise. The moment you assume a new state of being, a new identity, a new inner reality, everything in your world starts shifting to match it. You don't need to wait for circumstances to give you permission. You don't need proof, signs, or validation. The assumption itself is the proof. The feeling you accept as true becomes the blueprint your world must follow. Every great transformation begins with a single inner decision, the decision to believe differently about yourself and your life. When you assume a state, whether it's abundance, love, confidence, success, or healing, you step into a version of yourself who already possesses what you desire. And from that moment on, life rearranges itself to reflect the new version of you. It cannot do anything else. Your inner state is the cause, the outer world is the effect. Assumption is not about wishful thinking, it is not about hoping or waiting, it is about claiming something as already yours in the unseen realm, and living from that truth long before the physical world catches up. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, when you occupy the inner state of the person you desire to become, you ignite a shift so powerful that nothing can stop it. The assumption becomes a command to your reality. This is why feeling is everything. You can speak affirmations without feeling them, but nothing will change. You can dream about a different life without embodying it emotionally, but nothing will move. But the moment you feel the new state as natural, normal, and true, that is when your life begins to lift off. Every breakthrough you've ever experienced began with an internal shift, a moment where you said, "Yes, this is who I am now." Think back to times when you outgrew something, broke free from a limitation, or stepped into a new level of yourself. It always started inwardly. You changed first, and the world changed second. Your assumption is the fuel that powers your elevation. It carries an energy that draws circumstances, people, opportunities, and solutions toward you. When you assume abundance, you begin to notice ideas, possibilities, and openings that were invisible before. When you assume love, you radiate a presence that others naturally feel drawn to. When you assume success, you move differently, think differently, and life reflects that confidence back to you. The world bends to the person who knows who they are, not who they hope to be, but who they assume themselves to be. This is why dwelling on lack only recreates more lack. This is why focusing on delays only produces more waiting. Your assumption is always creating. It doesn't turn on and off. It is active every hour, every moment, every thought. So choose your state deliberately. Assume the feeling of your desired reality as though it were already present. Let it saturate your imagination. Let it settle into your body. Let it become the emotional foundation you stand on. From that place, your steps will be guided, your path will open, and your world will begin to reveal the evidence of your inner claim. Your life is not waiting on circumstances. Circumstances are waiting on you. The moment you assume the new state, the moment you accept the feeling of fulfillment, everything begins to move in your favor. Your assumption is the launchpad, and once you ignite it, your life cannot help but rise. Detach from the old story, because it has nothing to do with who you are becoming. Every version of you that struggled, doubted, hesitated, or waited belonged to an old state, a chapter that has already served its purpose. The moment you decide to step into a new reality, you must release the identity that was built around limitation. You cannot rise while holding on to the weight of who you used to be. Your old story is familiar, yes. It is comfortable, yes. But familiarity does not equal truth. Comfort does not equal alignment. Many people stay stuck not because the old story is powerful, but because it is known. Feels safe, predictable, and easy to repeat. But you are not here to repeat cycles. You are here to transform them. You are here to embody a new version of yourself that cannot coexist with the patterns you've outgrown. Think of your old story as a garment you once wore. Perhaps it fit at a certain time. Perhaps it kept you warm, but now it is too small. You can try to squeeze yourself back into it, but it no longer matches the shape of your becoming. The expansion happening within you requires space. It requires a new identity, a new narrative, a new emotional foundation. Holding on to the old story only delays the arrival of a life that is trying to meet you. Go into it is not only a different level of awareness, for it gives you beyond a wall the emotional foundation. Holding on to the old story only delays the arrival of a life that is trying to meet you. Old thoughts, old fears, old beliefs, they may show up, but that does not mean they belong to you anymore. Their presence is simply a sign that you are moving beyond them. They are echoes of a version of yourself that is dissolving. When your inner world begins to elevate, remnants of the past often rise to the surface, not to pull you back, but to be released. Let them go with grace, without judgment, without attachment. The strongest chains are not external, they are mental. The story you tell yourself is either the prison or the doorway. If you keep saying, "I always struggle," life will mirror that back. If you keep repeating, "Nothing ever works out for me," you reinforce a reality that no longer matches your higher self. But when you say, "That was who I used to be, not who I am now," you open the door to a new destiny. You must understand, the struggle was a teacher, not a home. Doubt was a temporary state, not an identity. Waiting was a phase, not a lifestyle. These versions of you were stepping stones, necessary for your growth, but never meant to be permanent. They carried lessons, and now the lesson is complete. Detaching from the old story does not mean pretending it never happened. It means no longer letting it define your future. It means refusing to drag your past into your new state. It means choosing a narrative that supports your elevation instead of fighting it. You are not obligated to be loyal to who you used to be. Your allegiance belongs to the version of you that you are stepping into. Begin telling a different story, one that aligns with the life you are claiming. Speak as the person who rises with ease. Think as the person who receives with grace. Feel as the person who knows they are worthy of everything they desire. The more you embody the new story, the faster the old one dissolves. The reality you are entering is too expansive, too abundant, too aligned to carry any remnants of the past. Let the old story fall away, because the new one, the one you are creating right now, is far more powerful than anything you've lived before. Release it all, rise without hesitation, and step boldly into the identity that matches your destiny. Live from the result, not toward it. This is the shift that separates delay from acceleration, hoping from receiving, wishing from manifesting. When you live toward your desire, you are always walking as someone who has not yet arrived. You reinforce distance. You reinforce waiting. But when you live from the result, from the state of the wish already fulfilled, you collapse the distance entirely. You step into a version of yourself who is no longer reaching, but being. To live from the result means to embody internally and emotionally the version of you who already has the breakthrough. This version of you thinks differently, moves differently, responds differently, and radiates a completely different energy. When you imagine yourself having already received what you desire, and you allow that feeling to settle into your being, You become aligned with the reality where it is already done. You are no longer searching, you are standing in it. This is the key. Fulfillment is a state of consciousness, not an event. The world mirrors your state. So when you occupy the state of the fulfilled desire, life organizes itself to reflect that fulfillment. Your desires come not because you are desperate or determined, but because you are aligned with the person who naturally attracts them. Think of the person who already has what you want. How do they feel when they wake up? How do they speak to themselves throughout the day? How do they walk into a room? What decisions do they make? What do they no longer tolerate or fear? When you begin to adopt these qualities, not as an act but as a natural expression, you shift your reality on an energetic level. You stop chasing the result because you have already become the person who lives in it. When you live from the result, your actions become inspired rather than forced. Your choices stem from inner certainty rather than fear. Your steps feel guided instead of pressure. There is a calmness, a sureness, a knowing that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. This is the state of someone who has already received their breakthrough, someone who no longer questions if it will happen, but simply moves through life with the confidence that it is already theirs. And here is the magic. When you embody fulfillment, you stop sending out the vibration of lacking. So many people unknowingly live from the state of wanting, and wanting only attracts more wanting. But fulfillment attracts manifestation. Fulfillment draws your desire closer. Fulfillment collapses the gap. When you feel as though it is done, life has no choice but to rearrange to match your inner certainty. Living from the result also means letting go of the old identity that needed proof. The old you needed reassurance, signs, validation. The old you doubted, wavered, questioned. But the version of you who already has the breakthrough does not ask when, because they know the when is irrelevant. They are already living in the done. You must choose to walk through life as this person now. Don't wait for the breakthrough to arrive to think differently. Think differently now. Don't wait for the opportunity to feel confident. Feel confident now. Don't wait for the manifestation to relax. Relax now. When you embody the end, you activate its unfolding. When you live as the fulfilled version of yourself, every element of your reality begins to shape itself around that identity. You stop being a seeker and become a receiver. Live from the result, become the person who has arrived, and soon your physical world will rise to meet the version of you that already knows the breakthrough is done. Your inner conversation is creating the shift, shaping your destiny moment by moment. Long before anything manifests in the physical world, it first takes form in the dialogue you hold with yourself. You may not realize it, but every quiet whisper in your mind is a seed planted in the soil of your future. Every word, spoken or unspoken, becomes a brushstroke painting the reality you are stepping into. Your inner conversation is not background noise. It is the creative power that moves your life forward. When you speak to yourself as the person who has already ascended, you pull that version of yourself into the present moment. You collapse the distance between who you are now and who you are becoming. Instead of waiting for the breakthrough to change your inner dialogue, you let your inner dialogue change the breakthrough. You begin to think, speak, and respond as the one who has already risen, and the universe must adjust everything around you to match that inner truth. Your inner words are instructions to your subconscious mind. When you say, I am rising, your mind accepts it as fact and begins shifting your beliefs, emotions, and behaviors in that direction. When you say, I always receive what I desire, your mind reorganizes your internal state to align with ease and confidence. When you say, my success is inevitable, your mind builds the internal framework that makes that inevitability feel natural. You do not need to force change. You need only to speak change. Think about how powerful this is. The world outside you cannot override the conversation inside you. Circumstances may try to argue against your rise, but your inner dialogue holds the final word. If your inner voice says, I'm stuck, you invite stagnation. If it says, I'm moving, you invite momentum. If it says, I'm becoming someone greater, then life begins opening doors that only your elevated self can walk through. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes the story you live. Most people unknowingly use their inner conversation to reinforce the state they are trying to escape. They say things like, nothing ever works out. I'm always waiting. I can't catch a break. And then wonder why life keeps repeating the same patterns. Their inner dialogue anchors them to the old identity. But when you choose to speak as the ascended self, you cut ties with the old narrative and rise into a higher one with ease. The ascended version of you does not speak from fear, doubt, or limitation. They speak from clarity, power, and certainty. They don't question their worth. They don't beg the universe for signs. They don't rehearse old wounds. They speak with authority because they know who they are and where they are going. When your inner conversation shifts, your emotional state shifts. When your emotional state shifts, your actions shift. When your actions shift, your reality shifts. Every part of your life is downstream from the words you whisper to yourself when no one is watching. Start listening to your inner voice. What is it creating for you? What future is it shaping? If it does not sound like the version of you who has ascended, change it. Replace every old phrase with a new declaration of who you choose to be now. Make your inner conversation your greatest ally, not your greatest obstacle. Every word you speak to yourself is a command. Every sentence is a doorway. Every thought is a step toward the future you are building. Your inner conversation is creating the shift that will soon become visible in your outer world. Speak only from the version of yourself who has already risen, and watch how quickly your life rises to meet you. Expect acceleration, because once you fully occupy the new state, life no longer moves at the pace of your past, it moves at the pace of your alignment. The moment you shift internally, the universe begins orchestrating externally. What once felt slow, delayed, or out of reach begins arriving with a speed that almost feels supernatural. This is not coincidence, luck, or chance. It is the natural response of a world rearranging itself to match the identity you have stepped into. Acceleration does not begin when circumstances change. It begins the moment you change. When you enter a new state of consciousness, a state of knowing, of certainty, of fulfillment, you activate a chain reaction that pulls everything you desire toward you. You no longer walk toward your manifestation begins moving toward you. Opportunities find you, right people appear, solutions unfold without strain, doors open with timing so precise, it feels as if everything was waiting for the exact moment you stepped into your new self. This is why inner alignment is everything. When you were wobbling, doubting, and trying to force results, life reflected that instability. Things move slowly, inconsistently, and with effort. But when you claimed the new state, fully, confidently, without looking back, you created a vibrational clarity that the world must respond to. Your clarity becomes a magnet. Your certainty becomes momentum. Your inner shift becomes the catalyst for outer acceleration. Expecting acceleration is not wishful thinking, it is understanding spiritual law. Inner movement creates outer. A new state collapses old timelines. When you stop living from the identity of waiting, the universe stops giving you things to wait for. When you stop assuming delay, delay dissolves. When you stop imagining obstacles, the path becomes smooth. Life responds quickly to the person who knows where they stand. Acceleration often feels effortless, not because you are doing less, but because you are no longer working against yourself. You're no longer pushing against resistance, wrestling with doubt, or trying to make things happen through willpower. You are flowing with the version of you who already has what you want. And in that flow, the right ideas come naturally, the right actions feel obvious. The right timing reveals itself with ease. What once felt like a long, winding journey suddenly becomes a straight path. What once felt complicated becomes simple. What once felt heavy becomes light. This is the beauty of occupying a higher state. Life stops fighting you and starts guiding you. You begin to feel supported by something greater. You feel led, carried, aligned. The shift you need doesn't arrive through synchronicity. Expect acceleration, because your new state cannot produce old results. The version of you who has already risen does not experience stagnation. They experience momentum, they experience clarity, they experience doors opening exactly when they're ready to walk through them. When you fully become this version of yourself inwardly, your outer world must reflect it, not slowly, but swiftly. So release the idea that change must take time. Release the belief that your breakthrough is far away. Once you occupy the new state, you have already collapsed the distance. You have already entered the timeline where things align quickly. You have already stepped into your season of swift movement. Expect acceleration, expect sudden breakthroughs. Expect perfect timing. Expect life to meet you at the level you have risen to. Because once you shift, everything shifts. And the universe rushes to catch up with the person you have decided to become. As you move forward from this moment, remember, the shift you've been sensing is not coming sometime in the distant future. It has already begun within you. Every inner movement you've made, every assumption you've embraced, every old story you've released has set your life on a new trajectory. You are no longer the version of yourself who waits, doubts, or hopes. You have stepped into the state of someone who knows their rise is inevitable. Live from the result, speak from the result, feel from the result. The world must reflect the identity you occupy consistently. Let your inner conversations guide you upward. Let the new state carry you forward. Expect acceleration. Expect alignment. Expect breakthroughs, not because you're forcing them, but because you have become the version of yourself who naturally receives them. Your life is lifting off. The shift you need is already unfolding. Walk with confidence, speak with certainty, and move with a quiet assurance that everything is aligning exactly as it should. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stepping into your power, and thank you for allowing yourself to rise. Your new chapter starts now. As you move forward from this moment, remember, The shift you've been sensing is not coming sometime in the distant future. It has already begun within you. Every inner movement you've made, every assumption you've embraced, every old story you've released has set your life on a new trajectory. You are no longer the version of yourself who waits, doubts, or hopes. You have stepped into the state of someone who knows their rise is inevitable. Live from the result, speak from the result, feel from the result. The world must reflect the identity you occupy consistently. Let your inner conversations guide you upward. Let the new state carry you forward. Expect acceleration, expect alignment, expect breakthroughs, not because you're forcing them, but because you have become the version of yourself who naturally receives them. Your life is lifting off. The shift you need is already unfolding. Walk with confidence, speak with certainty, and move with the quiet assurance that everything is aligning exactly as it should. Thank you for listening, thank you for stepping into your power, and thank you for allowing yourself to rise. Your new chapter starts now. As you move forward from this moment, remember, the shift you've been sensing is not coming sometime in the distant future. It has already begun within you. Every inner movement you've made, every assumption you've embraced, every old story you've released has set your life on a new trajectory. You are no longer the version of yourself who waits, doubts, or hopes. You have stepped into the state of someone who knows their rise is inevitable. Live from the result, speak from the result, feel from the result. The world must reflect the identity you occupy consistently. Let your inner conversations guide you upward. Let the new state carry you forward. Expect acceleration, expect alignment, expect breakthroughs. Not because you're forcing them, but because you have become the version of yourself who naturally receives them. Your life is lifting off. The shift you need is already unfolding. Walk with confidence, speak with certainty, and move with the quiet assurance that everything is aligning exactly as it should. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stepping into your power, and thank you for allowing yourself to rise. Your new chapter starts now. As you move forward from this moment, remember, the shift you've been sensing is not coming sometime in the distant future. It has already begun within you. Every inner movement you've made, every assumption you've embraced, every old story you've released has set your life on a new trajectory. You are no longer the version of yourself who waits, doubts, or hopes. You have stepped into the state of someone who knows their rise is inevitable. Live from the result, speak from the result, feel from the result. The world must reflect the identity you occupy consistently. Let your inner conversations guide you upward. Let the new state carry you forward. Expect acceleration, expect alignment, expect breakthroughs. Not because you're forcing them, but because you have become the version of yourself who naturally receives them. Your life is lifting off. The shift you need is already unfolding. Walk with confidence, speak with certainty, and move with a quiet assurance that everything is aligning exactly as it should. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stepping into your power. And thank you for allowing yourself to rise. Your new chapter starts now. As you move forward from this moment, remember, the shift you've been sensing is not coming sometime in the distant future. It has already begun within you. Every inner movement you've made, every assumption you've embraced, every old story you've released, has set your life on a new trajectory. You are no longer the version of yourself who waits, doubts, or hopes. You have stepped into the state of someone who knows their rise is inevitable. Live from the result, speak from the result, feel from the result. The world must reflect the identity you occupy consistently. Let your inner conversations guide you upward. Let the new state carry you forward. Expect acceleration, expect alignment, expect breakthroughs. Not because you're forcing them, but because you have become the version of yourself who naturally receives them. Your life is lifting off. The shift you need is already unfolding. Walk with confidence, speak with certainty, and move with the quiet assurance that everything is aligning exactly as it should. Thank you for listening. Thank you for stepping into your power. And thank you for allowing yourself to rise. Your new chapter starts now.